Ladies and gentlemen, there is a difference between being a princess and being a queen. A princess waits for things to be handed to her. A queen builds. A princess expects the crown to fit her head. A queen makes sure her crown never slips. Tonight, I want to remind every woman and every man listening too, that we are not called to live small. We are called to rise higher, to lead with courage, and to build a legacy. There's a big difference between waiting and creating. A princess often waits for life to hand her opportunities. She waits for someone else to come along, to give her the platform, to give her the approval, to give her the chance. She waits for the story to unfold in her favor, as if life were a fairy tale and someone else holds the pen. But a queen does not wait, she creates. She writes her own story. She builds her own table if there is no seat offered to her. She carves her own path even when the road ahead looks uncertain or unpaved. A queen doesn't sit by the window staring at the horizon hoping for a rescue. She rolls up her sleeves, steps into the unknown, and says, "If there is no way, I'll make one." Think about this. How many times in your own life have you caught yourself waiting? Waiting for the right moment, waiting for the perfect conditions, waiting until you feel ready. The truth is, waiting has never changed a destiny. If you're waiting for the storm to pass before you take your first step, you'll still be standing in the same place years later. But creation, taking a step of faith, acting with what you have, daring to build something out of nothing, that's what separates the dreamers from the doers. A princess dreams of castles in the sky, but a queen lays the bricks one by one on the ground until the castle stands in reality. Look at Oprah Winfrey's story. She was born in rural Mississippi, raised in poverty, and endured trauma and rejection. By all accounts, society had written her story before she could even hold the pen. But she refused to be a princess waiting for someone else to open a door. She became a queen who created her own doors, her own opportunities, her own empire. Today, she is one of the most influential women in the world, not because she waited, but because she dared to create. And when she created, she didn't just create for herself. She created platforms for others to rise to. That's the difference between waiting and creating. When you wait, you depend on external circumstances. You depend on others to see your potential, others to validate your worth, others to open the door. But when you create, you shift the power back into your own hands. You stop waiting for permission, and you begin to give yourself permission. You stop waiting for an opportunity, and you start creating opportunities. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you, "You're ready," and you start declaring, "I am ready now." Think of Thomas Edison. He didn't sit around hoping someone would invent the light bulb so he could enjoy it. He worked, he created, he failed over 1,000 times, but each failure was a brick laid in the foundation of his creation. And when the light bulb finally worked, he didn't just bring light to his own home. He brought light to the entire world. That's the mindset of a queen, not waiting for light to come, but daring to create light in the middle of darkness. This same principle applies in everyday life. The young woman who waits for the perfect job after graduation often finds herself discouraged when opportunities don't come knocking. But the queen in her says, "If they won't hire me yet, I'll volunteer, I'll learn, I'll grow, I'll start small and build." She creates her Ray Suma by creating experiences. She doesn't wait for life to hand her everything on a silver platter. She creates the silver platter out of resilience, discipline, and vision. Every great leader, every innovator, every history maker has lived this principle. They didn't wait for things to align. They aligned things by stepping forward. Rosa Parks didn't wait for permission to stand against injustice. She created a movement by sitting down on that bus and refusing to give up her seat. That moment of creation sparked a fire that spread across a nation. So many of us are still living like princesses, waiting for the invitation, waiting for the moment, waiting for the right people to notice us. But the truth is, your destiny doesn't begin when others recognize you. It begins when you recognize yourself. It begins when you shift from waiting to creating. It begins when you say, "I will no longer wait for someone else to rescue me, because I was born to rise, to build, and to lead." Validation is one of the strongest desires of the human heart. Every one of us at some point has wanted to be seen, to be noticed, to be told, "You are enough." There is nothing wrong with wanting encouragement, but when your identity depends on constant validation, you set yourself up for disappointment, heartbreak, and an endless cycle of needing approval. This is where the difference between a princess and a queen becomes crystal clear. A princess lives off validation. She thrives only when others tell her she is beautiful, when others notice her talents, when others applaud her efforts. But a queen doesn't depend on applause to confirm her value. She knows her worth in silence, she stands tall in criticism, and she carries herself with dignity even when no one is clapping. Think about the world we live in today. Social media has created an environment where so many people are trapped in the cycle of validation. The number of likes, the number of followers, the comments from strangers, they become the measuring stick of value. A princess in this culture wakes up and checks her phone, wondering, do people approve of me today? Did they like what I posted? Her self-esteem rises and falls with the opinions of others. But a queen may post or she may not, but her worth does not hang in the balance of a double tap. She understands that validation is fleeting, but self-worth is permanent. Michelle Obama once said, "There is no limit to what we as women can accomplish." Notice that she didn't say, "if people like you," or "if the world approves of you." She declared without condition that there are no limits. Michelle rose to become one of the most respected women in the world, not because she fit into everyone's expectations, but because she refused to let those expectations define her. When she walked into rooms, she didn't wait for applause before she spoke. She carried the confidence of someone who already knew she belonged there. That's what it means to be a queen. Your worth is established before you even enter the room. There's a powerful story in history about Eleanor Roosevelt. She was once criticized harshly in the press, mocked for her appearance and her voice. Many would have shrunk back under that weight. But Eleanor said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." That statement is the very essence of a queen's mindset. She knew that other people's words did not have the power to define her unless she gave them that power. A princess would have sought new approval, desperate to change the narrative. But a queen redefined the narrative by standing firm in her own identity. Let's bring this closer to home. Think about a young woman stepping into her career for the first time. If she approaches it with a princess mindset, she will constantly compare herself to her peers. She will worry about whether her boss notices her effort, whether her coworkers like her, whether people are whispering about her performance. Her confidence will rise and fall like waves in the ocean. But if she steps in with the heart of a queen, she knows her preparation, her discipline, her value. She doesn't compete with others for validation. She competes with herself to grow, to improve, to stand taller than she did yesterday. We see the same dynamic in relationships. A princess might change herself over and over to fit into what someone else wants, afraid of being abandoned or rejected. She will sacrifice her true self just to be validated by the attention of another person. But a queen knows that her worth does not come from who chooses her, but from who she already is. She understands that the right person will recognize her value without her having to beg for attention or compromise her integrity. Self-worth is powerful because it cannot be stolen. When you truly know your worth, rejection no longer feels like the end of the world. It feels like redirection. Criticism doesn't crush you, it sharpens you. Silence doesn't scare you, it centers you. A queen walks into life with an inner compass that no opinion can distort, no gossip can diminish, and no crowd can inflate. The truth is, when you spend your life seeking validation, you hand over your power. You let other people decide how high or how low you feel. But when you know your worth, you take back that power. You decide, you stand tall even when the room is empty, even when your name is not being praised, even when you are misunderstood. That is the freedom of a queen, the freedom to live from identity, not for approval. Comfort is attractive. Comfort feels safe. Comfort feels easy. A princess often lives for comfort. She enjoys the spotlight, the attention, the luxuries, and the privileges that come with the title. But here's the truth: comfort never builds character. Comfort never stretches potential. Comfort never transforms nations, families, or communities. Comfort keeps you in the palace, but responsibility takes you to the battlefield. That's why a queen doesn't chase comfort. She embraces responsibility. She understands that leadership is not about how good life feels for her, but about how strong life becomes for those she leads. Responsibility is heavy. It is not glamorous. It is not easy. It requires sacrifice, endurance, and vision. That's why so many people avoid it. They would rather enjoy the feast than be the one providing the food. They would rather wear the crown than carry the weight that comes with it. But queens rise above that. Queens don't run from responsibility, they run toward it. They understand that with the crown comes accountability, with influence comes sacrifice, and with authority comes the duty to serve. Think of Queen Esther. She was living in comfort inside the palace. She had food, security, luxury, everything a princess could dream of. Yet when her people were facing destruction, she couldn't stay hidden behind the walls of comfort. Her cousin Mordecai reminded her, "Perhaps you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." And in that moment, Esther chose responsibility over comfort. She risked her life, walked into the throne room uninvited, and changed the destiny of her people. A princess would have said, "I can't risk my life, I'll stay safe." But a queen said, "If I perish, I perish." Responsibility is greater than comfort. History is full of examples like this. Think about Martin Luther King Jr. He could have chosen a comfortable life as a pastor, staying within the walls of his church, avoiding controversy. But he embraced responsibility for his generation, stepping into danger, opposition, and sleepless nights to fight for justice. His life reminds us that the weight of responsibility is heavy, but it shapes history. He lived like a king, because kings and queens are remembered for the burdens they were willing to carry. Responsibility doesn't always come in dramatic moments of life or death decisions. Sometimes it comes in the quiet, daily choices we make. A mother who wakes up at 5 a.m. to prepare for her children, sacrificing her own comfort so her family can thrive. She carries herself like a queen. A student who chooses to study instead of wasting time, knowing that education is the foundation for her future, embraces responsibility. A business owner who pays his workers fairly, even when it cuts into profit, shows the heart of a queen. Responsibility is not glamorous, but it is powerful. Contrast that with the mindset of a princess. A princess can become entitled. She expects others to do the heavy lifting. She waits for others to make the sacrifices. She enjoys the benefits but avoids the burdens. She wants the celebration but not the preparation, the recognition but not the responsibility. But here is the irony. Comfort without responsibility eventually collapses. Without someone carrying the weight, the palace will fall, the crown will slip, and the throne will be empty. That's why comfort alone is dangerous. It deceives you into thinking you're secure while the foundation weakens beneath your feet. When we embrace responsibility, we unlock a deeper sense of purpose. Responsibility stretches us, it matures us, it makes us leaders instead of spectators. Responsibility teaches discipline, builds resilience, and forces us to grow into the person we were meant to become. The weight of responsibility may feel heavy at first, but it strengthens your shoulders. It expands your capacity. It transforms you from someone who enjoys privileges to someone who builds legacies. We live in a world that desperately needs more queens, people who are willing to step beyond comfort and carry responsibility for something greater than themselves. Too many are stuck chasing a life that feels easy, but ease never changes the world, responsibility does. A queen understands this truth. She knows her crown is not given to her for decoration, it is given for duty. She doesn't just sit on the throne enjoying applause. She steps down from the throne, works among her people, makes tough decisions, sacrifices comfort, and embraces responsibility because she knows that real leadership always comes with a price. A princess is often caught up in the moment. She thinks about today, what she will wear, how she looks, what people are saying, and whether or not she is enjoying herself right now. Her vision rarely stretches beyond the next event or the next applause. But a queen sees further. A queen does not live only for today. She understands that her choices echo far into the future. She knows that her decisions will shape not just her own life, but the lives of her children, her community, and generations yet to be born. A princess asks, what feels good now? But a queen asks, what will matter later? This is the difference between short-term gratification and long-term vision. Too often, people sacrifice their destiny because they are chasing the moment. They take shortcuts for temporary comfort, not realizing they are trading away future stability. A princess may enjoy the party today, but when the music ends, she is left with nothing. A queen, on the other hand, is thinking about legacy, what she is building, what she is planting, and what she is leaving behind. She lives with a vision that outlives her. Take Malala Yousafzai as an example. At just 15 years old, she was shot for speaking up for girls' education. In that moment, she could have chosen silence, retreat, or self-preservation. She could have played it safe and thought only about her own life, her own comfort, her own survival. But she chose to think generationally. She chose to fight for something bigger than herself. Today, her story continues to inspire millions of young women to pursue education. Malala didn't play for the moment, she built for generations. That is the mindset of a queen. We also see this truth in the life of Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison. He could have chosen bitterness, anger, or revenge. But instead of living for the moment, he prepared himself to lead his nation into a new era. When he was released, he didn't think only about today. He thought about the generations of South Africans who would come after him. His leadership dismantled apartheid and laid the foundation for freedom. That is what building for generations looks like. Even in everyday life, we face this choice. A young person who spends their earnings recklessly is living like a princess, enjoying the moment but not thinking about the future. Another young person who saves, invests, and plans ahead is thinking like a queen. Parents who neglect their children for the thrill of their own pleasures are living for the moment. Parents who sacrifice, guide, and instill values are building something that will live on long after they are gone. Queens think differently because queens are aware of the power of legacy. Look at the farmer who plants seeds. The farmer doesn't eat them all today. If he did, he would satisfy his hunger for a moment, but he would have nothing tomorrow. Instead, he plants, waters, and waits, knowing that his sacrifice today will feed not just him, but his family and community for years to come. This is the heart of a queen, choosing patience over instant pleasure, choosing discipline over indulgence, and choosing to build what will last instead of what will entertain for the moment. One of the greatest lies of our generation is that success is measured by how good life feels right now. But the truth is, real success is measured by what remains when you are gone. A princess wants the spotlight. A queen wants impact. A princess wants attention. A queen wants transformation. A princess wants to enjoy the fruit today. A queen plants orchards for tomorrow. Every person has a choice. Will I play for the moment, or will I build for generations? Will I spend my energy chasing temporary highs, or will I invest in something that will outlive me? Will I waste my influence on fleeting applause, or will I use it to lay a foundation for those who will come after me? These are the questions that separate a princess from a queen. Competition is one of the most natural instincts in the human heart. From a young age, children compare themselves. Who runs faster? Who is prettier? Who is smarter? Who gets more attention? A princess lives trapped in this cycle. She measures her value against the achievements of others. She competes for attention, for approval, for validation. If someone else shines, she feels diminished. If someone else succeeds, she feels threatened. A princess asks, "Am I the fairest of them all?" Her confidence rises and falls depending on how she measures against others. But a queen is different. A queen does not waste her energy competing for a crown that is already hers. She understands that her value is not based on comparison. Her worth is not diminished by another woman's beauty, talent, or success. A queen does not compete, she elevates. She knows that lifting others does not weaken her position. In fact, when she elevates others, she strengthens her own influence. This is why queens inspire generations. Think of Serena Williams. She didn't just dominate the tennis world with her talent, strength, and discipline. She used her platform to inspire millions of young girls to believe they too could rise, even in a sport that often tried to exclude them. Serena didn't see herself only as a competitor. She saw herself as a trailblazer. She opened the door so others could walk through. That is what it means to elevate. The mindset of competition keeps people small. It narrows your vision. It makes you obsessed with outshining the person next to you, when in reality, your true race is not against others, but against your own potential. A princess sees another woman's success as a threat. A queen sees another woman's success as proof that greatness is possible, and she celebrates it. A queen says, "If she can do it, then I can too, and together we can create more." In the corporate world, this principle shows up clearly. A manager with a princess mindset will feel threatened by the rising talent on her team. She will compete, hold others back, and fear being replaced. But a manager with a queen mindset will invest in her team, mentor them, and elevate them, knowing that their success is also her success. True leaders don't shrink others, they raise them. History is full of queens who chose elevation over competition. Look at Maya Angelou. She didn't spend her life competing with other writers, poets, or speakers. She elevated them. She once said, "When you learn, teach. When you get, give." That's the heart of a queen. She understood that her gift was not just for herself, but for others. She poured into younger generations, mentoring, encouraging, and opening doors. And because she elevated others, her influence multiplied far beyond her own work. Even in our personal lives, this truth applies. Think about friendships. A princess mindset creates jealousy and comparison, always measuring, always competing for who has more, who looks better, who is doing better in life. But a queen mindset creates support and empowerment. A queen celebrates her friend's success, claps when others win, and cheers from the sidelines when it's not her turn to be in the spotlight. Queens understand that there is no shortage of crowns. When we elevate others, something powerful happens. We create a culture where people feel safe to grow, where talents multiply, where unity replaces envy. Competition breeds insecurity, but elevation breeds community. And communities are what sustain legacies. The danger of constant competition is that it keeps you trapped in a small world. You're always looking sideways, never looking forward. But when you elevate others, your vision expands. You stop asking, how do I outshine her? And you start asking, how can I help her shine brighter? That is the posture of a queen. Fairy tales are beautiful, but they can be dangerous when they become the foundation of how we see life. A princess often lives in fantasy. She imagines that life should always be smooth, that love should always be perfect, that success should come quickly, and that hardship should never visit her. She believes in the dream without preparing for the discipline. She wants the crown without the cost. This fantasy mindset can keep people stuck, always waiting, always wishing, always wondering why life hasn't matched the picture in their head. A queen, on the other hand, understands reality. She doesn't deny her dreams, but she grounds them in truth. She knows that life is not a fairy tale. It is a battlefield. She knows that progress comes with pain, growth comes with struggle, and victory comes with scars. A queen doesn't waste her time pretending that everything will magically fall into place. She faces the world as it is, and then she makes it better through wisdom, courage, and action. Consider the story of Queen Elizabeth II during World War II. She could have stayed sheltered in the palace, living in fantasy while her people suffered. But she chose to operate in reality. She joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, learning to drive and repair military trucks. She wasn't above the struggles of her people. She was among them. That is what a queen does. She doesn't live in fantasy, waiting for others to fix the problems. She operates in reality and becomes part of the solution. We see the same principle in modern life. Too many people want success without sacrifice. They dream of financial freedom, but don't want to budget, save, or work hard. They want strong relationships, but don't want to put in the effort of communication, forgiveness, and commitment. They want influence, but avoid the responsibility that comes with it. That is the princess mindset, dreaming of the reward while ignoring the reality of the work. But queens embrace the process. They understand that the dream only becomes reality when you confront reality. Think of J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. She didn't live in a fantasy world where success would magically arrive. She faced the harsh reality of poverty, rejection from multiple publishers, and the struggles of single motherhood. She wrote in cafes, sometimes with her child beside her, because that was the only way forward. She didn't wait for perfect conditions. She didn't pretend life was easier than it was. She embraced the reality of her situation and worked with what she had. And because of that, she transformed her reality into something extraordinary. Living in fantasy may feel comforting in the moment, but it keeps you unprepared. It blinds you to challenges and keeps you passive when life demands action. Reality is not always glamorous, but it is always honest. A queen chooses honesty over illusion. She looks at her finances with clear eyes. She examines her relationships with courage. She acknowledges her weaknesses and faces them head on. She doesn't hide behind excuses or illusions. She understands that pretending doesn't change anything, only action does. One of the most dangerous fantasies people live in is the idea of waiting for the perfect time. They tell themselves, I'll start when things get better, when I feel ready, when everything is in place. But that perfect time never comes. The reality is, life will always have challenges. There will always be storms, obstacles, and difficulties. A queen knows this. She doesn't wait for perfect timing. She makes the time she has perfect by using it wisely. This is why queens thrive in adversity. They don't crumble when reality hits. They adapt, adjust, and keep moving forward. When setbacks come, they don't retreat into fantasy. They strategize, they rebuild, they rise again. They know that the road to success, love, faith, or leadership is not a smooth fairy tale path. It's messy, complicated, and real. But it is also beautiful because it shapes them into the leaders they were meant to be. A princess might live in the illusion of happily ever after. A queen lives in the truth of day by day, choice by choice. She understands that every day is an opportunity to build, to lead, and to grow. She doesn't chase the illusion of perfection. She embraces the reality of progress.